the Monroe County Reporters. Here are your hosts, Jason Harwood and Jacob Litton.
All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of Talking Grit. A little day later than we usually do it. Had some stuff go on yesterday, so I'm Jason Harwood. With me is Jacob Litton. First, let's check in with Jacob. How you doing, man?
I've been good. Good. You know, summer. Kids are on summer break, so
Yeah,
spending a lot more time with the family. It's been cool. How about you?
yeah. I've had a good weekend, man. So I sent you some pictures on Saturday. Went to the big house. Was on field. Took some pictures with my dad and a couple of my brothers. That was super cool. We were on the field, Jacob, for like literally 30 minutes. There was like 5 groups of people just taking pictures. It's my sister-in-law bought this package for my brother, so that's why we got down there. It's basically to take pictures. We also got to go in the locker room, which I showed you some pictures too. But my brother forgot to tell me that we could have brought a football down on the field, so I could have been on the big house field throwing football with my bros, which would have been awesome. But I took a sweet shot in the end zone with my dad. It was really cool. And they
it looks nice.
Yeah, they this photographer, it's in Monroe, and she lives in Monroe. But so she knew my brother or my sister knew her or whatever. She rents out like these venues. Like she's doing Comerica Park in a couple weeks. Same thing, but you can't be on. You get on the field, so you get in the visitor dugout. There's also in the radio, like where Dan Dickerson calls. You go up to the radio booth and stuff, take pictures up there. But you can't be on the grass. They don't let you on the grass. Whereas at the big house, I'm not joking. I was on the 50-yard line. I was in the end zone. I was under the field goal post. I was everywhere. If we'd have brought a football, it would have been even better.
Did you bend down, touch the grass?
I did
be one with the field.
I did. I touched it. It's like Ford Field. It's AstroTurf or whatever. It's synthetic field, and it's definitely slicker than I would expect. I could see why people slip. I mean, I know they have cleats so that they don't, but just in my plain shoes, it did feel slicker than regular grass. Felt like wet grass is kind of what it felt like to me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, then it's a good thing they didn't put the banner out and let you run out and jump and touch it.
Yeah,
that wouldn't have ended well.
Tear my Achilles like Halliburton on Sunday. Oh, yeah.
Hey, man, that's too soon.
I know. What's that?
Terrible.
Yeah, that sucked. I saw the look on his face on Halliburton. I saw the look on his face, and then they showed the replay, and you could just see the recoil. It's kind of like similar to Aaron Rodgers when he tore his like the slow mo. You're like, oh god,
Jason Tatum, the thing that just happened. That's it's always tough to watch the. I never like to see anyone get hurt. It's always tough to see them get hurt. It's really hard to see when their reactions are like that. There's been a couple like iconic things and. This is just going to go down. He was playing so well in such a short period of time. You knew he was playing hurt. You knew he had the city on his back. This was that legacy game, game 7. So for it to end like that, and you could tell, the realization of all that hit him right away as soon as he went down. Mm-hmm. And, man, like I said, it's always tough to watch someone get hurt, but in that situation, absolutely devastating.
Well, it looked like the story had already been written, right? Like he was going to hit a last-second shot to put him, like something big was going to happen because he already hit like 3 threes already, and he was hitting them from way out too early in that game.
He was feeling it, man.
Yeah,
I think we were all robbed of a much better game.
Yeah, no, it was. Well, first half was close, and then I checked out at halftime, and when I looked, it was up. They were OKC was up by 20, and I was like, I'm not even bothered turning this thing back on.
Yeah, the Thunder are just too much, and the refs' calls were going their way, and as it usually is, referees play a big role in the NBA games. So
I agree.
Sucks.
And then on Sunday, so I had a busy weekend. So on Sunday was my grandma's 90th birthday party. So she actually turns 90 on Thursday. So we had this party for. She is incredible.
Shouts out to Virginia.
Yeah, she is incredibly with it. Well, you know my grandma. You would not know she's 90.
She don't look a day over 80.
I honestly like if you saw her, I don't know if you would think that. I think you'd think she's in her 60s or 70s. She still drives. I mean, amazing,
right.
Amazing woman. Like would buy me lunch at work just to like so we could have lunch. She was awesome. She's just
Yeah, Jason's
it's
grandma
just
comes to
awesome.
work and then buys him lunch. He can't even
I,
pay for grandma.
I know. But we threw her this party, right? So I did get her an awesome gift though. So and you already know this, but I'm just going to share the whole story because
Right.
didn't tell you about what happened at the party. So I reached out to Dan Dickerson and Cameo, got my grandma a birthday message from Dan Dickerson. First of all, it's 2.5 minutes long. I mean, it wasn't just happy 90th birthday and goodbye. It was 2.5 minutes long. He talks a lot about this year's Tiger team. Talks about one of my grandma's favorite ball players, Marcus the Bird Fidrich, and it just was an awesome message. And at the very end of this message, he says, "And I hear you're going to be at the ballpark because we're taking her to the ballpark on Thursday for her actual 90th birthday. She's a huge Tigers fan. This is like her dream. So we're going to take her to the game." And Dan Dickerson at the end of the message says, "I hear you're going to be at the ballpark and I'd like to come and meet you in person." So I'm going to meet Dan Dickerson in person on Thursday. Hopefully the weather holds out here because it's looking kind of iffy on Thursday. But
Right.
if it does, that's going to be awesome. But my grandma like started crying on Sunday. Sarah took a video of like her watching Dan Dickerson's message because it's really neat. He's like 2.5 minutes in, and it's the last 15 seconds when he says, "I want to meet you." At the game. And so I knew that part was coming because I'd seen the message like a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, whenever I got it from Dan Dickerson. And I knew it was coming. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't. She was just so ecstatic with her because like with the message itself. But then we got to the part where he's going to meet it. She got really emotional. So it was awesome. It was.
So it did hit her right away. You didn't have to explain like this is really happening. You're really meeting him. She wasn't just in shock the whole time watching the.
No, I was, because it's not like, hey, I'm gonna come. Like he doesn't spit it right out. It wasn't because like he first says like I want to meet you or I want I meet up or something like that, and then like I was really like I was wondering if she was gonna really understand that he's going to meet us, and no, she got it right away, and there was probably like 25, 30 people at the party. Some of the people I already knew because I told them ahead of time. Some of the other people didn't, and they were just shocked that
That's cool.
The whole Dan Dickerson thing, and and I love. I mean, it's going to be an awesome, feeling for me too to meet him. And then I just really wanted something special for my grandma on that day. My grandpa passed away last year. She's doing well, but I mean, it's been a tough deal for her the last 2 years. Just being by herself in the house, and I was really wanting to make this 90th birthday special, and I think I hit it out of the park. I mean, to use a baseball.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not to use that pun, but I think you hit a home run, man.
Exactly.
Grand slam, probably.
Yeah, I have Dan Dickerson say it's gone or something like that. So I can't wait to get this going. So I'm really excited about that. But did you do anything cool over the weekend? Like talk about Dan Dickerson or anything?
No. We had Milo's birthday party actually over the weekend. So that was fun, although it was pretty hot out. So spent a lot of time in the pole barn where it was nice and cool.
Okay.
That went well.
Air conditioned out there?
It's not air conditioned, but I mean it's a pretty big garage and it's got, fans and stuff in there. You keep the door closed, it stays pretty cool. Insulated pretty well. But so had his birthday party on Saturday. Everything went real well. He had a great time. Then on Sunday, we had my niece's birthday party. That was outside at a park in Monroe. Oh, God. And, so, it was getting even hotter as the days were going on. That was really bad. They had like a splash pad and everything set up, but we were outside in the heat most of the time. So we also had a couple parties. No Dan Dickerson, no cameos or anything like that. These were kids. Yeah. They were toys. Milo got a bunch of the books that he asked for, so he was really excited about that. So
that's cool.
It had a pretty good weekend. And then, here we are back to work.
Yeah, it is.
For you, you don't have to brave You don't even have to brave the heat going outside on the way to work.
No, dude, I'm in the basement where I check where I work down here in my office podcast area or whatever. And sometimes I will wear pants and like a quarter zip jacket because the air conditioning is cold down here. It's like I'll go upstairs and
People working construction, they're listening right now, hate
I
you.
know they do. And so I will on my lunch or whatever, I'll go up and walk the dog, and I gotta take 2 layers off because especially how it is
Right.
now, it's like freaking 95 degrees or whatever it is outside. It's ridiculous. All right, man.
Yeah, I just have a short walk from the the car inside
So,
work
from
and
your
everything
air
like
conditioner.
that.
Well, is your air conditioner working in your car? Because I know it doesn't always work.
Yeah, right. No, we knock on wood, man. Don't wish that on me again.
I do not. I do not.
I've had those problems before. No,
Yes,
the air conditioner breaks now. We ain't going nowhere.
All right, man. Let's get into this. We're going to talk over and unders today. Lions over and unders, kind of on the season. I set up a lot of these questions. The first half is over unders. Then the second, I got it kind of like who's going to have better stats or something along those lines. So I'm going to shoot those out to you, Jacob. I'll let you be the first one because I'm the one that came up with these over unders, and then I'll give you my opinion. So first one I have Lions division wins this year set at 4.5. Gonna be above or below that?
Let's start this off. Are these numbers that you came up with, or were these from some sort of betting websites? Have you got some sort of data?
Everything here I picked myself. But the reason why I did 4.5 is because this division looks to be pretty tough this year, but the Lions have killed that the last 2 years. But I'm just curious what, if you're bullish on the Lions division record this year or you're a little more cautious. So 4.5.
So now one more question that I have. Am I answering these trying not to be a Lions homer? Am I answering these as if I was the one placing the bets on them?
You're answering as Jacob.
Is that what we're doing
so you
here?
can choose however you want to
honest?
answer it, and then I will, I'll give my answer. But no, I want you to answer. It's hard to not be a Lions fan. This is a Lions podcast. We're of course going to be biased towards a Lion, but I want you to try to be as realistic as possible. But 4.5 is the number I'd set. Maybe I set it for a trap for you because it seems like easy, right? They should get 5 wins.
So no. So the thing about that is we've gotten 5 in the last 3 years in a row, have we not?
We
5 or 6. Did we sweep the division?
Last year we had 6. The year before we only lost 2. We lost 2. It was 4-2 because we lost the Packers.
We had that Packers and then the Bears. Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So 4-2 that year. Last year we were 6-0, right? Yeah, 6-0 in the division.
Right. But I think even the year before that, when we were 9-8, I think the year before that we won 5.
Okay,
that was like over half of our wins were division. So I mean, all that being said, we've been playing very well in division. We definitely show up when it matters. If I'm a betting man, if the line is at 4.5, I'm going to say under. Probably just because I think 4 is that sweet spot of where we're going to be. It's not out of the realm of possibility, obviously, even when we're not playing our best football, that we can still win the division or still win, sweep the division is what I was going for. Yeah, but I guess I'm going to say under. What are your thoughts when you made this? Were you thinking right away over again?
Well, I did 4.5 for you because I thought for sure that if I did 3.5, you'd definitely say over. And so 4.5, I was trying to be a sweet spot. I almost was like thinking you were going to say we're going to sweep the division again, because that's how you usually roll with these these record predictions. Because you cannot sometimes you it's a you can't.
I'm trying to be realistic. If my money is on the line, I would have to say,
yeah. If you're putting real
that
money,
is true. That's why this is still hypothetical.
Yes. I think I'm going to go with, I think we're going to get 5 wins in the division this year. So I'm going to go over. I don't think we're going to go undefeated in the division. I'm going to go over on it, but I think it was between 4 and 5, and that's why I picked the 4.5. Oops. All right. I think Jacob took off here. We'll wait for Jacob to come back here in a second. All right, sounds like Jacob's going to be back here in a minute, so we'll just hold on for a second. For anyone out there that's listening, Tigers up 7-4 right now, looking like they're going to get another win here, which is awesome. Good. Kerry Carpenter hit a sweet shot, and then Wenzel Perez had a nice hit. Dylan Dingler had a home run. There he is. All right.
Hang on one more second.
All right.
It says that I have another browser.
Yes.
Because I have two windows open. It says it can cause recording issues. That other one still says it's at 35% uploaded. I'm plugged in Ethernet. I have good internet. I'm not stealing it from the neighbor. I pay for this.
You're not? That cord, that's why it took you so long. You had
Yeah.
to run to get the
I had to run outside and
get the cord. Unplug their house. They're wondering why they can't watch Netflix right now because you've stole their internet.
Right. I wire their satellite over to my. I don't know. What do you think? Should I exit and let that finish uploading, or
is it moved at all since we've?
Well, it was at 70%, and now I joined this, and now it dropped to 36%. But I don't know if that's accurate. It doesn't usually take that long.
Yeah. I could tell your video is just a little bit different right now, but I don't know. I think we just
well, like the one we're talking on right now, this browser says 0%.
Okay.
And usually it's uploaded like most of the way before we're even done.
Right, yeah.
So I don't want none of this to even record.
Yeah, you're probably right. So if you go to the other browser, is your video on there or not?
No, it's just the one that says keep this tab open.
Oh, okay.
Let me just close out of this one, and then we'll see how long it takes for that thing to upload.
Okay. Yeah,
All
then
right.
we can sign
And
back
then
in.
I'll join back in. Yep.
All right.
If anybody's watching right now, I apologize for the inconvenience.
Yep, this is Jacob's fault, not Jason's fault. So
I don't know what's going on. I think it's probably the hub that Jason is recording from. Somehow it's kicked me out.
probably in my office. Yep, that's it.
All right.
All right,
Be
I'll
back
see
in a
you
minute.
second. Yep. All right. Bottom of the seventh, 2 out. Tigers got a couple guys on right now. Let's see. I think Riley Green's on. So let's see. Perez is on second. Or Green's on second. Perez is on first. Perez had a nice game so far. McKinstry's up. Left on left, and he's hit left-handers really good this year. So that's awesome. So let's hopefully we get a good pitch here, get a couple run cushion here. All right, 3-1 on McKinstry. Let's get the bases juiced here. For Parker Meadows. In play runs. What did he do? Ooh, ground ball left fielder. Oh man.
Gentlemen, start your engines 9-4. Pressure on top of pressure. You think if Pace hit, you know Joey's going to sit with 2 outs.
All right. Did you restart it?
I just restarted the computer and I'm back in.
All
I
right.
did an internet speed test. I did a Riverside test. Everything tells me I'm fully operational and fast, and something is just not clicking. So I don't know.
It is what it is. All right, man. So we add Lions division wins 4.5. You picked 4. I'm going with 5. I'm not going to ask you who they're going to lose to because that's not fair.
I won't
ask
answer
you.
that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on.
Because then if they do lose those games, I feel like I caused it by me saying it, speaking it into existence. So
all right.
No, I think right now the floor feels like it should be 3, like the absolute floor. I mean, if you have a losing record in the division, that's going to be tough. And I don't see it happening.
Division. Yeah, with the losing record. So
Right.
Yes.
So I'd say floor is 3. Sweet spot is going 4 and 2 because that's a pretty good year. But obviously, going undefeated is what we're aiming for.
Exactly. All right, man. Goff threw for 4,629 yards last year. Will he be over that or under that this year?
Okay. New offensive coordinator. Hopefully not too much is changing on the offense, but still a few bugs to work out. You also have JMO being fully unleashed, another year being comfortable with his receivers. That's a tough one to answer. I said before last year that I think we saw just about as much out of Jared Goff as we were going to see, and that he was a good quarterback, but I didn't know that he was going to take it to another level. And then he took it to another level. So, I've doubted him before. I think that this year is probably going to look close to what it was last year. I'm also going to say under. I'll say he's hovering around 42, 44. It's also with the running backs that we have, the rushing attack that we have, just don't think it's going to be necessary for him to hit those numbers again. Not that he can't or that he won't. I think it's going to be around there, but I'm going to say another close under.
Okay. I'm going to go under 2.
Where's your head at here?
I'm going under 2 because of the rushing thing. I'm hoping that our defense is going to be better than it was last year, so we're not going to be forced into these passing situations. I'm going to mention because it would go against the trend if he goes under, because his first year with the Lions, 2021, 3,179 yards. It was a bad team in general, won 3 games. Yeah. It was a bad team. So 2022, obviously we picked it up that was Ben Johnson's first year as offensive coordinator, 4,438 yards. Then in 23, he went 4,575. So it was more. And then 2024, which is last year, he went 4,629. So he's went up about, roughly 100, around the, 80 to 100 yards each year the past 3 years. So the trend would be, 4,700 or so yards this next year. But I'm going to go lower, and not because Jared Goff is going to have a bad year or anything. I think that we're going to have even more emphasis on the run next year. And I think our defense is going to be better.
Yep. Agreed.
All right. This one, you just mentioned him, JMO. He averaged 17.3 yards per reception last year. Over or under that this year? You just said that we're going to unleash him. But what does that mean to you? Do you think he's going to increase his he's basically averaging an explosive play per reception?
Right. So, I mean, you would think the more that we're using him, that's typically how it goes. I mean, the yards per reception thing is usually only if you have very, few receptions or if they're all going for big plays, which was the case. Most of them, it felt like every time JMO caught the ball was a first down at least or more. So if we're using him more frequently, or using him a little more in the short game, I would think that average comes down. And not because he's having a worse season or anything like that. It's just when you talk about average yards per reception, you want more catches. The more catches you have, the more frequently they're going to be shorter yardage. You get a slant, you get a screen, you get something like that. You're not going to get 14, 15 yards every single time.
Yeah.
And let's hope JMO catches, 90 or 100 balls.
Yeah. So 92 targets last year, 58 receptions, 1,001 yards, and 7 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Last year, what's his stats? So I want to say that you're probably right, just that we're going to feed him the ball more. So that is going to lower his average per reception, but I want to go over just because that's what I want to see.
Yeah, right.
Could I do that? Just be selfish and be like, all right, that's what I want to see, so we're going to see that. But I think you're right.
I asked the rules before we played the game.
I know.
I
know
asked the rules.
No,
this is what you said.
Exactly. If you're going to bet money, if I was going to bet money, I'd have to say under, just because I think we're going to utilize him more this season, and therefore the more touches, the less likely he's going to average. So I think you're exactly right with that assessment. All right, this next one. Goff was sacked 31 times last year. Over or under this year?
31 times?
Yep.
I mean, obviously you hope it's under, right? We also have, some changes coming to the offensive line. Luckily, they're not the tackle position where most of the pressure and the sacks seem to come from. I'm going to say under 31.
Ooh.
He's moving around the pocket a little bit better last year,
Okay.
and maybe he's working on that again the offseason. New line, maybe they're going to, play call a little bit differently, or know that in certain situations we got to get rid of the ball quicker. So maybe that comes into play. And, just to keep my trend of everyone so far tonight is being under, I'm going to say under 31.
Just say under also for every one of these.
Until you get a good one, then I'll say over.
Okay. I'm going to say over on the sacks, just because of Frank not being there. Unfortunately, but you made up a good point. Because of the offensive line changes, will they have quicker play calls? Will they throw more screens? Will they have, just short outs to the wide receiver screens? We didn't see a lot of wide receiver screens last year. I don't remember
feel
seeing
like
that.
It, right.
Yeah, and it just seems like that could be something. You get Amon-Ra out there blocking and Tim Patrick blocking for JMO, and then, let him, hopefully he could take it to the house or whatever. So you could see more of that. We're definitely a good screen team. We'll do tight end screens, running back screens, but wide receiver screens, not. So maybe that'll be something we add to the offense. If this, if Frank, if we're allowing more pressure at the middle, maybe this is something the Lions do to slow down that pressure. But I'm gonna still say over.
You have to game plan for that, right?
Yes.
Well, I mean, you look in Goff's career. I've got the numbers right here. He had 33 sacks in 2018 with the Rams, 35 his first year with the Lions, and then 31 last year was his third most.
Okay.
So I mean, typically he does not get sacked very much. So I mean, I'm sticking by what I said and saying under.
Right. Yeah. There. I also felt like we were taking deeper shots last year at, to utilize JMO more. And maybe that's, it could, anytime you hold the ball longer, you're going to get an opportunity to get sacked. So we'll see.
It didn't feel like, though, when you said 31, that felt high. It didn't feel like it was quite that much last year. And now I'm trying to think back to specific games where it was like, specific games where he may have taken like a handful of sacks more so than others, because it just didn't.
I don't know. I remember the Titans got him for a couple.
I don't have his
like
game log in front of me, but
yeah. I mean, it didn't feel like he was under constant pressure. I mean, you wouldn't expect that with their offensive line, but yeah, I guess that's
right,
roughly 2 a game. He's taking.
But right, and it just didn't feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
Week 1, 2 sacks against the Rams. Cardinals got to him twice. Seahawks 3. Vikings sacked him 4 times. Titans 4 times. Colts got him 3 times. The Bills got him 3 times. And no sacks. 0 sacks against the Houston Texans and 5 interceptions that game. So
Yeah, which
0
is
against the
strange,
Jags.
right? I mean,
yeah, right.
Maybe he should have taken
Because he
the sack.
wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. He wasn't going down. He was just making terrible decisions.
Just
Terrible throws.
with the ball, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I
So,
think one of the
you know,
reasons why it doesn't feel like he takes a lot of sacks is because they're not necessarily drive killers for the Lions. We can, with
True.
2nd and long, we usually will get most of those yards back, and then we're also going for it on 4th down on some of those plays. So, we just have a really good offense, so it doesn't feel like they're drive killers. Where I feel like maybe with the Stafford years, he would take a sack, and you knew, oh, unless he throws a bomb to Calvin, this drive's over.
Right.
I felt like that.
Listen to
of
stat
times.
line for these two, because the back-to-back games he took 4 sacks. First one was the game against the Vikings, the first one. So he goes 22 for 25, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. But he sacked 4 times. Nobody cares. That right there is why I didn't feel like he was sacked. Tennessee Titans, 12 completions on 15 attempts, 85 yards, 3 touchdowns. Then we beat the brakes off the Titans, 52-14. He gets sacked 4 times. Nobody cares.
That game, we'll never see another stat line like that game ever. That game was so crazy.
Just such a low offensive output.
Yeah. Like if I'd have told you, Goff's gonna throw for less than 100 yards, gonna get sacked 4 times, but Lions are gonna win by 50, because that special teams was just insane in that game. And then we kept getting turnovers too. All right, man. The next one. This one is not an over-under, so I think the next few are not over-unders, but who's going to have more starts this year, DJ Reader or Tyleik Williams?
Well, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still going to say I think DJ Reader has more starts. I think the game plan, right, would be that when Aleem comes back, Tyleik probably... Maybe he doesn't lose the snap numbers, like he's still going to be getting his snaps, but he would lose that official title of being the starter, right? Aleem would come back and start next to Reader. That's where I'm thinking in my head, is that Reader is probably going to continue to start when Aleem comes back. But your question is implying that when Aleem comes back, Tyleik is going to have played well enough that DJ sits, right?
That's my question. That's where I was getting to.
That's where you're going.
You read my thinking. Yes, you got it right. So you still think Reader is going to start with Tyleik?
I think he still has that veteran thing going for him. I still think he's getting the official title as the starter. He may be out, in terms of snaps, he might get out snapped by Tyleik. Mm-hmm. But I think as far as like who gets that first crack, that first snap, the official start, I think it's still going to be DJ.
Okay.
That's where my head's at. Maybe, hopefully Tyleik plays well enough that that's a conversation in the middle of the year. And hopefully, he's earning those defensive snaps and, he's earning his worth out there, hopefully. Well, but I just think,
my hope is that Tyleik, because Aleem's probably going to come back in November or something like that. You're hoping that Tyleik is, shown his worth, and that they were like, we can't get this guy, we can't keep him out the field. The thing that I like about
sacks.
what I like about Tyleik is that he'll stop the run first, and that's why you got Reader out there. So you're hoping that Tyleik showed us enough pass rush in the first half of the season that they're just like, we got to put this guy next to Aleem and see if we can generate a lot more. And you're right, Reader may get the start anyways, and then Tyleik is coming in and doing an outstep him. That could definitely definitely happen. But one thing I do know is that the Lions are going to play the best guy out there. So if Tyleik, outplays Reader, if he could stop the run, they might say we're getting extra juice from him. That that's the way we've got to go. But I'm gonna. my wishful thinking is that I think Tyreek's going to do it, but I think you're right. They're going to let DJ Reader play this out as long as he's healthy and everything like that. And
good conversation to have. Hopefully in November. Hopefully this is still a question still up in the air.
Yep.
Because then that's also going to be something else. Like, did Brad Holmes miss on this Tyreek pick if he's not performing and if he's not in that conversation when Aleem comes back?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping that everything I've seen and read about Tyreek, I think he's going to be the guy. But it took Aleem a little, a little bit, to produce.
Right.
But everything that's said is that Tyreek was ahead of Aleem where he's at right now. And you would expect that first round pick versus fourth round pick, right? You would expect that to happen. Aleem came out more looking like a nose tackle, but then slimmed down, and now he's playing that 3 tech. So let's hit over Salem. We've got some chats coming in from a listener, Salem. So his first responses to the Jair Goff question, he says a quarterback doesn't have to scramble to avoid sacks. A step up in the pocket or sights up works just as well. And I think that's right. That's where Goff improved much better last year, was just moving around a little bit more. But the thing I liked about him last year is that he would take the easy scramble to get a first down if it was open to him, whereas before he would never do that. But he doesn't. Obviously, he's never going to be swift of foot. But I do like that. That it's good. He also thinks Reader is going to outstart Tyreek, and I think that that's the correct answer. But hopefully we could refer back to this in November and be like, oh my God, if we'd have just known that at the time. And then Salem also says, starts don't get you paid, snaps get you paid. And I think Tyreek is going to end up out snapping by the end of the year DJ Reader. And I really believe that's going to happen.
We'll
All right.
see.
Hey,
Jacob, real quick, to speak on something that you said, though.
Yeah,
because this is something that we brought up before, that I've said before. You don't think that a full off season, doing lower body workouts, doing speed conditioning, strength training, I mean, you don't think that Goff could get a little bit quicker? You don't think he could be a little bit more, in the run game? Not that I'm asking him to be Lamar Jackson. And like you said, he did. That's what kind of surprised me that the sack number was high, because he did look like he was moving around the pocket better. He was stepping up. And you're right. When it was there, he was taking the small little lanes. He was getting first downs. He had a couple, decent runs, which don't usually happen. My whole thing is, though, you're an NFL quarterback. You're a professional athlete. You should be moving a little bit more fluid, a little bit more quickly. It should not look like you're running in slow motion when you're going. And I just don't understand. Do you think he's taking that seriously and he's doing any kind of speed training? Because just in my head, I feel like
that's not his game, though. I mean, did you see is Tom Brady out there doing speed training? No, he's not. That's just
but the NFL right now looks a little bit different. I mean, I know Tom Brady is just removed, but he was 40 when he was playing. I'm just saying it would look, shave off a tenth or two off your 40 time, and things would go much better for us. I think that I believe that that's obtainable, though. I think he can get that if he was taking that, part of the training in this offseason. And I don't feel like he ever does.
I don't think that that's ever going to make a difference in the game. And if I'm going to say Jared Goff has a finite amount of time where he could train and do something better, I'd rather him use that time elsewhere, whether that's, sidestepping, whether that's better footwork in the pocket, all that
can be speed and conditioning.
Yes, but not overall speed. Like, I'm going to shave a 10th of the time off your 40. Do you think that actually would have any in-game results, him shaving a 10th time off his 40? Do you think that would?
How many times he took off running and he can only get 3 or 4 yards because they catch up to him so damn fast?
Even if he takes a 10th off, they're still going to catch to him. He's running a 5.1 instead of a 5.2.
Like I said, right. I'm not asking to be Lamar Jackson. I'm just saying it would go a little bit further if he took it a little more seriously.
All right, I got a serious question.
I don't need him working on his arm strength or whatever. Like, obviously, you stay conditioned.
Serious question.
Yep, what?
Who runs a faster 40, Panay or Jared Goff? I don't know the answer. I don't know what they ran, but
I don't have that in front of me right now, but I would guess Panay.
You think Panay? I think probably he's a better
I would guess Panay.
We'll have to look that up later on, because I think that's just something I just thought of.
You keep going. I'll look it up right now.
All right, man. Okay. Who has more interceptions this year? TA or DJ Reed? Reed is a great cover guy, but he is not an interception machine.
Not right. Well,
didn't
and
have
obviously
one last
Terrion didn't
year.
really do it either.
No, he didn't have one. Reed did not have one last year at all with the Jets. And I think the most he's ever had in a season is 2. So my question is, who do you think has more? Now, we know Terrion hasn't got one yet. So who do you think has more at the end of the year? Do you think it's going to be DJ Reed or do you think it's going to be Terrion?
I know that Terrion is trying to play the ball more. That was something that he's focusing on, especially being around Kirby and Branch and like seeing them, kind of have that ball hawk mentality. So I know Terrion's trying to take that a little more seriously where it doesn't seem to bother DJ Reed. I don't know if Terrion had that many interceptions in college either. It just kind of feels like that's neither of their, they're more hands-on tight coverage. Like you're not going to get the ball. Versus, let me try to bait the quarterback into throwing this or whatever it may be. I'm going to guess Terrion. I think this is a toss-up, though. I don't have like a confident either way. Let's hope they both get 4 or 5 at least.
Yeah, I think, they could win this with 2 or something like that. I mean, last year, you look at Carlton only had 2, right? And that was both in the Houston game. Our corners just don't, they play a lot of more man-to-man. I mean, they're still playing more zone than man-to-man. But just throughout the league, we play more man-to-man than anybody else. So, and I we'll see if that changes this year. I don't expect it to. I expect us to be aggressive like that. I think Terrion has got room to grow. You're wondering if they're going to pick on Terrion like early on because they're going to throw away from DJ Reed. Our guy's going to travel. Like all these things, we don't know how the Lions are going to play defense this year. But I want to say that Terrion, the way that he grew throughout the whole year, he's playing the ball a little bit more, turning his head a little bit more. I think he turns it and he uses the stuff he used last year, maybe baits a quarterback this year and gets a pick. So I'm gonna go with TA on this, but it could very well just be luck too. Who's in the right spot.
Right. Yes. Yep.
But I do like. Who do you think is gonna have more pass breakups? I didn't write that one down, but who's going to have more PBUs?
I also am going to say Terrion just because I think he's going to get targeted a lot more.
Okay.
Kind of like how you said before. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be picking on him like they were last time, but I just feel like he is going to be the one getting targeted more. So maybe more opportunities are going to come up for these interceptions or these pass breakups.
Okay.
How do you feel, though? You think Reed?
Oh, man. I want to say DJ Reed's still going to lead in pass breakups, but...
It's a good question because these are complete toss-ups. I mean, they are.
And that's why I just wanted to invite a conversation where obviously this is early in the season. We don't even know how training camp looks or anything like that, but these are just thoughts that, how is this season going to go? It'll be interesting to come back to this conversation and to see how wildly we were on or wildly we were off. But I think DJ Reed's going to have he's going to work for more of the pass breakups. TA, I think, is I'm going to have more interceptions, but we'll see. All right. This next one.
Real quick, pushing back on the last one. So I don't have any current statistic for how fast, sometimes they'll say run speed in terms of mile per hour or whatever. I don't have any. Probably because there hasn't been a very big sample size for Goff for them to measure that. All they have is the 40 time coming out of college.
Okay.
And in 2016, Goff ran a 4.82.
Okay.
And then Panay, his 40-yard dash at his pro day was 5.09.
Okay.
So Goff was a hair faster than him when you're talking about their their pro days or their combine. That was also 10 years ago for Jared Goff.
Yes.
And I stand by what I said. I think what we need is to put them side by side and have them race.
Okay.
This is what we need to make happen to see who's faster.
All right. When we're at training camp, we will just make a sign. We will do everything to get this going. Yeah. Yes. And then we can't take any videos while we're at training camp, but you'll just have to believe our story when we tell you. All right, man. All right. The next one here. Who's going to start more games this year, Monty or Gibbs? Do you think it flips at all this year? Is this the
Well,
year it
we
flips?
talked about this before, that it felt like towards the end that Gibbs was taking over, and that, you know, traditionally last year Monty got the first drive. He got the start, he got the first drive. Gibbs came in, change of pace. They were pretty 50-50 in terms of how many carries or snaps they got.
Yep.
I think it's going to be a little bit more 60-40 Gibbs this time.
Okay.
You know, that's tough to say, though, if they, you know, because this is kind of like the Tyleek thing that I just said. The terms of like the number of carries, the number of snaps could change. Doesn't necessarily matter, but whoever's the first person out there gets the start.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that Gibbs makes more starts than Monty, but I can't say I would be surprised if they keep doing what they were doing and let Demo set the tone and let him be out there first.
They like to.
How do you feel, though?
I don't know, man. I feel like at some
Right?
point,
I mean,
at some point, I feel
Gibbs
like
is going to get more touches.
Yeah.
Gibbs has to get more touches this year. If that's on your thing, that's got to be a given. But as far as who gets that first crack, who gets the start, that's when it's like, I don't know. Doesn't matter all that much. Doesn't matter to them. You know, does Gibbs say like, hey, I want to get these starts. I want to be the one out there. You know, I don't feel like it should, but I don't know.
I don't think it does. I don't think it'll matter to them who gets a start or not. But at some point, it's a respect thing, I think. And if you're going to say the guy that gets you there or whatever is going to get the start or the recognition, I think at some point you start thinking maybe we got to give Gibbs a start here or there. I know that they like to start with Monty just because like he likes to set the tone, right? The battering ram tone that we're going to pound you all day. So I don't know if they want to change that up, but how that would be awesome to just flip it, right? And be like, oh, you know, the defense gets set, think their Monty's going to run up the middle, and then all of a sudden we come with Gibbs with the speed, and you're game planning, and then all of a sudden we've scripted the first 10 plays and we got Gibbs out there instead of Monty. I mean, that could be awesome. And, you know, that'd be a total surprise, especially if you're thinking in division. You know, what if with Ben? You know, you think of week 2, the Bears, that Ben has it set up with his defense. All right, they're going to come out with Monty, and then all of a sudden we bring Gibbs out there and we throw a little curveball action.
I still like, you know, I don't understand. I get it, but I don't. Why we don't have more packages and more plays where they're both out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because then, you know, they're both in the backfield. Gibbs motions out. Then they're like, okay, maybe it's a pass. No, it's a run the other way. Maybe they use some motion. That's a screen. They could also just do, you know, it's not out of the question that, hey, let's run a toss. You know, we'll fake right. We'll toss it left. And then you've just got, you know, maybe Amon-Ra is the only receiver out there. And then you've got Demo as the lead blocker for Gibbs. You know, you got the line and everybody shift to the right. And then they run out left. I mean, it's interesting to me that they haven't used that more frequently or really at all. Yeah. I don't have that in front of me, but I can't recall them being on the field at the same time.
They don't run them at the same time. Someone asked Ben Johnson last year about that, and Ben Johnson said that there's not a lot of data out there, and I think they're all about creating, you know, mismatches. And so I don't know how much of an advantage it gives, because if you have Gibbs double back, you know, double back, then maybe puts like a nickel on Gibbs. And then that's not the advantage that you would have if it was a linebacker. But it also seems like you could toss out to Demo because he's a quarterback, right? He could throw the ball. He threw the beautiful pass.
Yeah, right.
Throw it over to Gibbs. You know, you just run a screen. You know,
trick play. I like it. Yeah,
yeah. So I mean, you could have something like that. It's strange to me that they haven't run that, a double back set, like especially we run all these trick plays, right? That's what Ben Johnson did, but he never ran one with both running backs out there. It seems strange to me that they never got to that.
And there's just so many different, like, think of like a jumbo package. It's like 3rd and 1. And then you come out there and you've got like, maybe you've got Gibbs back. Then you've got Demo and Laporta both in the backfield. That's how you line up. And then you've got Brock Wright, you know, you get your tight end. Maybe you've got one receiver out there. And then you just switch to play right the line. And then all of a sudden you've got Gibbs lining out wide. You've got Laporta going out one way. You've got Montgomery in the back. Goff drops back to shotgun. if the defensive personnel is not there, then you've got a mismatch somewhere on the field, possibly
Mm-hmm.
more than one. That's just something I would like to see, and I wonder why we don't do that more. Other than obviously they just like keeping them fresh and giving them drives. Same reason they don't do the whole like typically play-by-play thing. It's not like you get 2 or 3 plays and we're going to switch the running back. Typically, it's the entire drive.
And drive. Yep. And
which has worked. I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? But just something that's been on my mind.
Yep. I agree with you. It would be interesting to see him on the field. I would like to see what the defense does to counter that. That's the key thing there. It's the unknown. What would the defense do? Because I mean, ideally, you want to get Gibbs out there on a linebacker on Gibbs, right? I mean, that's where you want to isolate that. But I'm wondering, depending if they're a base, maybe you get that. But if they're a nickel or dime, you're not. You're going to get a corner on Jair, and whether that's an advantage or not. I mean, I know Gibbs hasn't shown, a lot in the route running yet. Maybe he develops that this year. Maybe that's what he takes to another level this year, and he just becomes a whole nother player that's just tough to defend.
Right.
All right. This one is who's going to have more rushing yards this year, Jair or Bijan Robinson?
Well, they're both splitting carries, right? Neither of them have like a full control over the backfield. I'll let the Lions homer thing come through this time, and I will say that Gibbs has more rushing yards than Bijan.
Do you know who outrushed who last year?
I think that Gibbs had more yards than Bijan last year, right? Weren't they close?
No, they're very close. So Bijan had 1,456, and Jair had I think 1,414. Let me look here just to make sure.
So we're talking about less than a 50-yard difference.
1,412. But what's interesting is
how many less carries did Gibbs have?
That is exactly where you go. So Gibbs had 250 carries to Bijan's 304. So he had 54 extra carries for 40 extra yards.
Right.
So you get, he's
so that drops his yards per attempt by almost a full yard.
Carry is 4.8 for Bijan, that's really good. I mean, 4.8 is really good, but
not as good
Bijan
as
is 5.6. So he's almost
Jair.
a full yard up there. I mean, yeah, Jair is 5.6.
Right. That's what I was saying. Almost a full yard per attempt more. Right.
Yep. And what's interesting is you kind of always think Gibbs is the outside guy and Monty's the inside guy. But when you look at yards per carry, Gibbs actually averages more yards in between the tackles than outside the tackles. 5.9 yards in between the tackles, 5.5 on the outside of the tackles. So I mean, he's dangerous either way he goes, but he's actually more dangerous in between the tackles on a yards per carry basis.
Right. He can squeeze through that line, and then once he hits that second level, how many clips do we have of him making safeties and people just miss?
Just look stupid.
So those are runs technically up the middle, but obviously he's bouncing these to the outside and breaking free.
Yep. I think that's the one thing that Ben Johnson would say, when he was here is turn the 4 yards runs into 7 or 8 yard runs. And that's what you're hoping. And Gibbs can easily do that, get into the second level. Demo could definitely make a guy miss. But the guy's still gonna make some contact with him, slow him up. Jair can really make them miss where they just are on the ground and don't even touch Gibbs. He's the closest I've ever seen to Barry Sanders in a Lions uniform. Reggie Bush could make people miss, but not like Jair.
Not as much when he was here in Detroit either.
No, exactly. All right. I'm gonna go with I want to say Jair is going to have an even better season this year than he had last year as far as rushing totals. I think our rushing game is going to be at a new level this year. I know that we're losing Frank, but I have a feeling that Johnny Morin's going to really emphasize the run game more and just be stubborn with it, which I'm okay with because our offensive line is so good. All right.
This is one of those episodes, man. The more we talk about it, it's why is it not time for the season now?
Exactly.
I got to wait even longer.
I know. I was hoping that's what this would turn into. So, all right, man. Got a couple more here. This one is who is going to have more sacks this year, Hutch or the next 3 Lions that lead in sacks? So
So
you
Hutch or the next 3 combined?
combined, yeah. So
Oh. I mean, you would hope it's the next 3 combined because that means we're complete unless some other people are making an impact on the defense.
yeah.
Or maybe Hutch just goes off and almost breaks the sack record. So it's one of those conflicted things for me, man.
Yeah.
If I'm betting, I'm going to say the next 3 are going to surpass him. But if I'm
Okay.
not betting, I'm just trying to speak things into existence. I'm going to say that Hutch is going to go off this year. Continue what he was starting to do last year.
Yeah, we're going to see. Hutch he is going to be determined even more last year. He missed football for like 9 months or whatever by the time he gets back on the field. He's going to be a demon this year. I think he wins it. And that doesn't mean that I think the other, that the other 3 guys aren't, whoever's going to be next on the list, but I think the Lions are going to rotate guys so much. Say Zadarius comes back, Davenport's on the outside. It could be Pascal. Liam's going to be out for so he's not going to get as many sacks because generally he's going to be number 2. Levi, they're going to move Levi inside and outside. So I think just the fact that we rotate so many people and then Hutch is on the field for like 95% of the snaps. I think Hutch is going to do it more than the other 3 guys, but we'll see. When I came up with that question, I just laughed to myself because I was like, this is such a funny question. All right, this is the last one, and we're going outside the Lions on this one. But who is going to have more passing yards this year, Caleb Williams or Jordan Love?
I'm going to say Caleb Williams.
Okay, you're going to say Caleb.
The Ben Johnson thing going, they both have a lot to prove, right? Ben Johnson really needs to prove that the Lions thing wasn't a fluke and that he really can turn around an offense quick. Caleb Williams, with everything that happened last year, they both know the importance of making this relationship work and making this turnaround quick. I also, I don't know. I would say the Bears are probably not going to be playing from ahead in too many games. They're going to be fighting, so they're going to have to utilize Caleb Williams. I'm going to say he has more pass yards. Obviously, Jordan Love, now they've got some new receiving weapons, to play with over there. They also have a more prominent rushing attack in Green Bay, I would say. So I'm going to say that Caleb Williams throws for more yards this year.
Yeah, okay. I think you're.
Where's your head
right.
at with that?
I think you're probably right on that. So let's see. Caleb Williams threw for more yards last year than Jordan Love did. Jordan Love missed a couple or 2 or 3 games.
Right.
But he's at like 33.89. I think that's what I saw for Jordan Love. Caleb Williams is at 35.41. He started every game. Will the Bears finally get a 4,000-yard passer? That's
what I was just going to say. Is does he hit 4,000? Is going to be a question, like a more accurate thing for me.
Do you think
I'm going to say he does it. I'm going to say he hits 4,000 this year.
You think he's going to hit 4,000? Ben Johnson wants that on his plaque that he could be the head coach.
He does. He wants that quickly.
And
hopefully they're playing from behind so much that they have to throw. So
exactly, yeah. Let him throw, man. He had 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions last year. I expect both numbers to go up this year. I think that Ben Johnson's going to have him, just trying to trust
some more chances,
and then he's going to take more chances and not, because it's one of those things is like, yeah, you don't want to give the ball away, but if you're playing so careful all the time, you're going to leave more touchdowns on the field than you want. So I don't know.
Do you think how this season goes for Caleb Williams? Do you think this says anything about Jared Goff? So let's say Caleb goes out with Ben Johnson and Caleb throws for what'd we say? 44. He throws for 4,400 yards. Let's say he throws 30 touchdowns, just has a crazy year, which is what Goff did last year. But let's say that Caleb goes out and does that. Does that diminish what Goff did? Does it just make Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson look good? Does it make Goff look like maybe he was more of a product of Ben Johnson, depending on how he does? But
I
I'm just
don't-
saying, just strictly speaking on Caleb Williams, how he does.
I
Or
think
if it's
you
the other way, if
coupled-
Caleb,
if you coupled it with Goff having a downfall this year, like
right.
say he's back where say he's at Caleb where he says 3,500 yards, 20 and 6. I mean, then you would,
Ouch.
I mean, that would be terrible if Goff did that. And then
Yeah,
at that
right,
point,
right.
you'd be like, everyone would have that. That would be the storyline. Oh, Ben Johnson was the guy. I am in full belief that Dan Campbell has more to do this offense than people realize. Now, I'm
Right.
not saying Ben Johnson's not amazing. I mean, I think that he is. But I also think that Dan Campbell's the one that lays out the plan, and then it's up on his coaches to enable that plan. And so I don't know. I don't whatever. I think it had to do with more how Goff is going to be perceived this year. If Goff comes out and does the same, then it's going to be like, oh, then it was Jared Goff is the guy, and Johnny Morton could still put up the numbers or surrounded him with talent. I think it's, it'll speak more to Dan Campbell for me personally. The outside noise would be, could be different.
Right. I was just wondering, let's flip that and say Caleb Williams, only throws for 3,000 yards again. Like we'll say 25 touchdowns, 10 picks or something like that, a little bit higher. But, does that make Goff look better? Does it make Ben Johnson look bad? Or do you think it's just circumstantial for how the Lions team was last year?
I don't know, man. I think there's going to be enough Goff. People have opinion of Goff already out there.
Oh, yes.
Outside of Detroit that I don't know. They're going to just point to, look at all the weapons he has. He has Jameer Gibbs. He has, Dave Montgomery. He has, Amon-Ra. He's got Sam Laporta. He's surrounded by all this talent. But you look back at his Rams days, he did awesome until, the coach lost confidence in him or whatever happened there. That was,
he did awesome until they lost the Super Bowl.
Right. And then I don't know what happened. There was obviously some inner conflict between the coaching staff and Jared Goff. And then when he came here, obviously it was a rough first year, but we had no one around him, and so I don't blame him at all for those stats. But once we surrounded him with some stuff and we got some stability in coaching, and Jared Goff has become an even better player than he was with the Rams.
Yes.
So
agreed.
I don't know. Yeah, I think the outside, I think from my perspective, I know what Jared Goff is. And he's never going to be a guy that runs a 4.6 like you want him to. He's just never going to be that guy. But he is a guy that in the fourth quarter, I'm going to trust him to get us down the field and get us in the right plays and be calm and be collected and take care of business. I mean, he threw 5 interceptions in that Texans game and still was able to lead the fourth quarter comeback.
I mean, I still think if you flip that, let's say he throws 2 more touchdowns and then doesn't throw any picks in that game, that puts him at 39 touchdowns to seven picks.
Yeah.
Then he's firmly at the top of the MVP conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That one game threw all that out of the window.
It did, and it was a national. That was a Sunday night game, so I mean, everyone saw it.
Yeah.
It took him out of that conversation for sure.
That's gonna be another. I know we were gonna talk about it in a minute, but something we're gonna have to see on Netflix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, actually, let's go right there. So that's our over under. Let's go kind of around the league. The first thing we're going to talk about is what you just mentioned. The QB show releases July 8th on Netflix. So are you going to be tuning in?
Oh, absolutely. I really like these shows anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I like this, look behind the NFL, and with Amon-Ra and the receiver show, that was awesome. Jared Goff going to be on the quarterback show, so I can't wait. And it starts July 8th, which is I think the week before training camp starts. So get another little early start to the season.
They do these once a week, right? Or
I think so. I think the first week. I can't remember now. I was gonna say I think the first week they released 2 episodes, but then it's once a week.
Once a
But
week
now
after that.
after I'm saying that, I could be wrong. Maybe it is just once a week.
Okay.
Probably depends on how many episodes they have. They tend to drag these things out.
Yeah, they do. And man, I just don't want to get to the end of that. That's the one I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's
I
the
mean, it
last
was tough. It was tough with Amon-Ra the receiver show. It's going to be really tough again.
at the end of this. Yeah.
We're
I am
reliving
curious, what's going to be said after the Houston game. Because, obviously they're going to pinpoint that 5 interception game that we just talked about.
Right.
And then, and also beyond Jared Goff, the Kirk Cousins thing, him getting benched at the end, man, that is going to be, they had the Marcus Mariota thing that I think we talked about it on the show before. Just watching some guy get benched, that's going to be wild.
Yeah, they're going to, I imagine they're going to have Kirk Cousins' reaction to the draft and everything, or maybe not live to the draft, but I mean, his first thoughts before the season, before training camp even really starts. I mean,
yeah.
Cousins is not a very controversial guy for the most part, so it'll be interesting to see how he words that or whatever. You can't hide the disappointment and shock and everything when you sign a new contract, hopefully with a team with a little more security, and then the very first draft pick they have, they take another quarterback.
Yeah, and it's a top 10 pick. It's not even like, like the end of the first round or, they take a Jordan Love like at the end with Aaron Rodgers. It's, they take him with the 8th overall pick. It still blows my mind that they did all that. It's just crazy. And then, yeah, it'll be good. I do have a question for you though. All right. If Matthew Stafford was on this show, why would he become less likable just because Kelly would be on there? Do you think Matthew Stafford, like all of a sudden, like people would hate him more?
That might be a driving force behind why he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
He's like, please don't. Let's not get any more exposure than we already have.
I know.
Which sucks because, obviously, I really like Stafford still. He has had like other podcast appearances and everything like that. Really funny, really good. For some reason, man, his wife just says all the wrong things and just, rubs everybody the wrong way.
I know.
And it's to the point where I feel bad for her, and then I feel bad for him, and I feel bad for the family. It's like, man, just stop.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that would have been insufferable, especially because Netflix and the way TV show producers do, they know what they have and they know what they're doing.
Oh, I know.
I think they would try to make her even more annoying or just try to spin things around. So yes, spare us from all of that.
I'm surprised Kelly did not make Matt. They had to reach out to Stafford. Can you imagine having Stafford and the Goff on the same show? Like if he would have been the other quarterback, the third quarterback. Oh my gosh. They had to reach out.
They had to have, right? No, I would have been cool with having Stafford on there, but just, unfortunately, they do show a lot of the family stuff, and I just think they would have spun that around.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And not all people in Detroit are fairly, maybe unfairly critical of her and them right now. Which is weird because I feel like it's just while they're playing or while he's still playing. I think when he retires that all this is going to be squashed and people are going to be right back to, then he could just go back to the good old days, the good memories of Lions quarterback.
Yeah.
Is that how you feel or how do you feel right now? I mean,
I don't like Kelly at all because she makes it about herself. And
yeah.
And that's what I don't like about her. Now, obviously, I don't know her, so I don't know how she is with her family or kids or anything like that. So I'm not making that opinion. She could be a great mom. She seems like, a nice person other than like trying, like why last year, why'd she have to say about hooking up with the backup quarterback just to make Matt jealous? Like, why would you say stuff like that? Like that.
Right. Think before you speak.
Right, exactly. And
there's just but here's the thing that I was saying about that though is I don't know, how the internet works, how life works. I mean, they're taking these very small clips that could be completely out of context, and they could obviously not that one. That one is pretty cut and dry. I mean, I don't know how you get around that, but there's plenty of other things she said that have been annoying and just out there. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe some of that's probably taken a little bit out of context.
I agree. I mean, the whole thing about the booing the kids and stuff like that.
Right.
She, they were not booing the kids. I mean, they were booing the Rams. I mean, is what they were doing. And then her expectations of what Lions fans were going to treat Matt like, no, we're not going to give, I think you're right. When he's not a active football player anymore, I think Detroit will love him and they will give him rounds of applause and cheer when he comes back to the stadium. But he's an enemy right now because he's on the other team. And just like we're going to play him again this year, no one's going to like Matt. It wasn't going to, when we were terrible, we needed something to root for. And so we lived vicariously through Matt because he was, 1 year removed from being a Lions player.
Right.
And so, but it wasn't always going to be like that when we got good. And of course, how it's set up in the NFL, we play them our very first playoff game at Ford Field, ironically. And of course we're gonna hate on him, and that's where the Jared Goff chant came from.
Right.
We have a comment,
which will be interesting because that'll be part of the Netflix show, I'm sure too. The trailer,
sure.
I think, kind of alluded to that.
Yes.
Another chat.
Yeah, chat says no, he was definitely booing the kids. This DET, which may be short for Detroit, I'm not sure. But he said, nope, I was booing for the kids. So all right. Yeah, you teach their own if you want to.
So you can't say nobody was booing the kids.
Yeah, exactly. I shouldn't have.
Typically, when we're in Detroit, though, for the most part, they're not. I've been in some places as a Detroit fan, and people are terrible. Like some of the fans are just terrible for no reason. Mm-hmm. And you see some of these things online. I don't think typically Detroit, it doesn't look that way, which obviously I could be biased or I'm not paying attention to it because I'm not a member of the outside team. It doesn't seem like anybody's going out of their way to, throw food on anybody or just pick on them or what,
Yeah,
not like in Cleveland. I mean, you can't wear. Yeah, right.
Those type of places. Yeah. I don't want to ever be like a player. I mean,
you don't want that reputation, right?
No. I mean, everywhere that I've went with the kids, like we've been to Toronto, Cleveland. I don't know if we've been to any outside stadiums with my actual kids. I've never actually been any place I've been to the Cubs, Cincinnati. I have never been yelled at or heckled at any of thing. And then when we were with the kids, people were just overly friendly with us and asked us about the team and stuff like that. Now those are baseball stadiums, so that's a slightly different environment than tailgating football fans. But
slightly,
yeah, yeah, I know. I was
way different, right?
Yeah, it is. You're right. All right, man. Let's move on to the next one. This next topic is Bengals rookie Shamar Stewart, who we both liked, by the way. Contract dispute with the Bengals. So the contract basically comes through. The Bengals want to put language in there they could void the contract and get him out of guaranteed money if he like were to get suspended or something like that for off the field type stuff. So what's your read on this situation? Are you with Shamar or are you with the Bengals on this?
This is a terrible look for the Bengals. So I'm with Shamar just because it seemed, there's a lot of conflicting reports and everything, but, it seems like the Bengals are trying to add different language, different contract terms, which may be something that they are trying to do going forward. And Shamar is just kind of the first player in history, I guess, that's going to be getting this sort of a deal. And his agent, doesn't like that. So then Shamar doesn't like that. That makes them look bad that they aren't able to come to some sort of agreement or figure something out there. I've also heard where they kind of have said, well, that's your offer, take it or leave it, which is another terrible thing. I mean, especially if this gets into training camp and then you've got your rookie first round pick and he's not at training camp and you're already in some sort of contract situation. But then what makes matters worse is that they also have Trey Hendrickson, who's publicly, spoken out against the team and the way they've handled his contract. Very, very bad look for Cincinnati, in my opinion.
I agree.
But are you Team Shamar or what? Like, how do you feel about that?
The Bengals just screw up all these they're just a terrible run franchise.
Yes, right.
And, it's like Carson Palmer tried to talk Joe Burrow out of, like, just don't, if you can get out of going to Cincinnati, get out of it. And it just tells me former players are like, you're not going to get traded right there. And it just seems like even the Jamar Chase thing, they end up giving him this contract, but they basically make him wait a year. And the same thing with T. Higgins. It's like, if you're going to end up paying these guys, why lead all this bad energy in there?
Right.
That's what I don't get it. Like, I don't know. Like, do you feel like you need to exhibit that amount of control or whatever to show you who's the boss or whatever? I don't get it, and I just don't think it leads to a winning atmosphere. So I am with Shamar Stewart. Obviously, we don't know the whole situation, but yeah, I'm glad the Lions no longer deal with contracts like this and they just take care of their players. It just leads to a better environment.
Right. Yeah, the Bengals doing nothing to help their reputation. I mean,
You know?
it's actually like it was shocking to me. So I saw the stuff where Trey Hendrickson had spoken out against the team, which is crazy. Like for a player, I mean, to be saying some of the things that he was saying, which he wasn't wrong. But you know, it's funny because now here we are in 2025 and I see some of these things. I saw Shamar Stewart and I saw where they were asking him, you know, about the contract and about, you know, like he had went to OTAs, then he wasn't participating in OTAs, then he ends up leaving OTAs. And, you know, he said, you know, the Bengals want to win arguments more than they want to win games. So, you know, I see this stuff and then I immediately have to look like, is this AI? Did he really say this? Is this really, you know, like, and I had to look, it's like, oh my God, this really happened.
Yeah.
Just unheard of. And then the Bengals, you know, very quiet about it. They don't want to make things too public and get too messy, but it is. I mean, it's at the forefront of NFL news right now, and it doesn't look like things are going to change.
Yeah.
And they've kind of left, you know, either he signs it or he doesn't. I mean, that's a wild stance to take. And let's say he doesn't. I mean, if he holds out in a training camp, can you imagine a rookie? I mean, like you said, all these different things they've done, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, they seem to always back down and give in eventually. But do they give in to this rookie right before the season starts? Then you got to try to push him right out there. How is that going to help the team in any way? And if you really do hold this out, I don't know if you saw, but I mean, if they really don't come to terms, Shamar can sit out this year and he can re-enter the draft and be drafted by anyone except for the Bengals.
Right. But then also he gives up his salary that he would get this year. And then obviously he's probably going to go later in the draft than where he's going to get drafted. So he's going to give up that amount of salary too. So he's kind of stuck a little bit. So, but I just don't understand why you had to put your foot in the ground like that. And just, it seems terrible to try to get free agents or just anybody to come to your team if it's like pulling teeth to get any of this, you know, get just a rookie deal, because the amount of money is like slotted in. So it's not like previously where, you know, you would go based on your position or whatever. It's based on where you get drafted is how much money you're going to make. So I, you know, they want to slip in this language. I don't know.
It shouldn't be that hard. And who, you know, this is the first time they're trying to do that with a contract. Where have they been burnt that this is necessary to add to the? Yeah, because I haven't seen that anywhere either. Like, did someone cost them a bunch of money because they, you know?
I don't think it has anything to do with them. It's probably just, you know, they don't. I don't.
It makes no sense.
It doesn't,
and it only gets worse as time goes on. And I mean, if you're the Bengals, you have to hope that he eventually just backs down and goes with it. And then you can continue doing that on contracts going forward and say you've always done it like that. Because how much worse does that look for Cincinnati if you do wait and he does hold out a training camp and then you give in?
Yeah.
Then you give him what he's been asking for all along, and he's late. He didn't do any OTAs. He's missed the start of training camp. You know, just horrific.
Yeah, it seems dumb.
Something Cleveland would do.
Yeah, these Ohio franchises, terrible. All right, man. Speaking of terrible people, Aaron Rodgers signed with the Steelers.
Excellent segue.
Aaron Rodgers signed with the Steelers. Any thoughts on that? Well, and then also the thought that, you know, if Stafford left the Rams, Sean McVay said that Aaron Rodgers was a backup plan. So any thoughts on either one of those situations?
That was more interesting to me, the fact that McVay had said, you know, Rodgers was one of their possible plan Bs, you know, if Stafford did not re-sign, because that seems wild. You know, the Steelers thing, how long was that rumored for? It felt like it was going to happen. For whatever reason, it just wasn't happening. Aaron Rodgers holding out. I don't know if you saw, I think it was today or yesterday, he was on McAfee, and he had said, like, he admitted that this is probably it. This is probably his last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't I don't see him doing anything with the Steelers. I mean, can you imagine him and DK Metcalf arguing? Him trying to get in
I
DK
was gonna
Metcalf's
ask you about
face and
that
tell him what route to run?
I just want George Pickens there, just to.
Well, but now that makes more sense, right? That's what they felt like they had to move Pickens because they knew there was no chance that was going to work.
Yep.
But they think DK Metcalf, I see this imploding horribly.
All right. So Lions play the Steelers week 16. So way at the end of the season. Is Aaron, we're going to take injury out of the fact. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be still starting by week 16?
I'll say no.
You don't think
I'll say no. I'll say he's already given up before then.
All right. We'll see.
Steelers out of the playoff hunt, and he kind of just gives up and says, whatever. Don't want to be here. The only thing about that, though, is that the Steelers also don't it's not like the Steelers need Mason Rudolph to get more playing time so that they can see what Mason Rudolph's got. No, they don't have anybody. Right? I mean, I don't know who the other quarterback is in Pittsburgh right now, but I don't think it's anyone that's like a potential future starter or anything like that.
But man, I just don't understand why you're putting it all on Aaron Rodgers, who didn't show anything last year, and it just seems like a very Steelers.
It's a very bad move, right? I don't know. Which Tomlin usually gets the most out of his players, but I just don't see that dynamic either. Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers working side by side. It's just Will Howard. Will Howard is the rookie
that's right.
for the Steelers.
Yeah.
Somebody I don't think they have much invested in for the future of the franchise, but we'll see how it looks.
Well, at least they didn't burn a first-round pick on him like they did Kenny Pickett, right?
Yeah, right. I knew that was a mistake.
Speaking of weird quarterback situations, Browns got 5 of them on their roster. Shadur Sanders.
There we go. There we go, Cleveland. This is the Ohio.
Yeah, getting 2 tickets. You've seen those reports, right? He's gotten 2 speeding tickets. There's nothing in Ohio.
Don't care how much I owe. Here you go.
There's nothing in Ohio to speed to. So you should not be driving fast unless he's driving
you
out of the
speed
state.
Out of Ohio.
Yeah, if he was going out of the state, then maybe I'll give him some grace. But you don't drive to fast anything in Ohio. So,
hey, he's trying to make it to Michigan.
Okay, well then I give him his props there. Go see a real baseball team up there. But five quarterbacks on their roster. Who doesn't make it out of these? You got Flacco, you got Pickett, you got Dylan Gabriel, Shadur Sanders, and Kenny Pickett. Who doesn't make it out of there?
What a horrible situation that they have created for themselves.
I know.
You can't keep them all. You definitely, Dylan Gabriel, Shadur Sanders, either one of them gets cut, they're going to some other team. They're not going to wait around on your practice squad. Are you that confident in Flacco or Pickett? This whole situation just seems weird. It feels like it's probably a competition between Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders to try to get that third spot, right? I mean, that's what logic would say just looking at this, but I don't think you'd be wrong by just cutting loose either or. If you keep Gabriel and Sanders and then cut either Flacco or Pickett and let the other one be the starter to start the season off. Not a good situation, but I mean, I don't,
Who starts who's the week 1 starter?
I would have to guess Flacco. That's, why bring Flacco in the first place? You bring Flacco around, okay, veteran presence or whatever. He's a holdover for a little bit. Then they're like, let's draft 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
In the middle of the draft. Let's draft 2. Why?
Well, they signed Flacco like 2 days before the draft too, which was anyone beating down the door of Joe Flacco to get him signed? Like, why do
right?
Now it's just going to cost money in your cap because I'm sure that some of that money was guaranteed to Flacco. So now they're going to just, I got to imagine that, in my opinion, Flacco's the easy guy to cut. You start with Pickett, and then you got to keep Gabriel and Shadur Sanders. I mean, Deshaun Watson is the other guy that's on your roster, and he's going to be out all year with an injury. Still eating up 50% of the cap space or whatever crazy number he's eating up. I think Kenny Pickett's going to start. But what if Shadur Sanders gets cut? Like you talked about them getting cut. What a fall from grace from thinking you're going to be a top 10 quarterback in the draft, getting drafted in the 5th round, and then to get cut by Cleveland. Wow.
Would that be a blessing or a curse to be cut from Cleveland and let him pick where he wants to go, try to continue afterward?
But the thing is that, like, he was a 5th round pick. All these teams, all 32 teams passed him over.
Had several
for
chances,
for
right.
4 rounds. Like, you could say what you want to say that, hey, we're not going to believe him in the 1st or 2nd round, but the 3rd, 4th round, you didn't want to say, oh, we could take a chance on this kid. I think that
It's also the publicity, right? The headache that it would have caused. I mean, him as a player is one thing, and somebody, I think his talent level and him as a player would have warranted somebody taking him maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th round. It's definitely just the off-field distractions and stuff that it causes. And I mean, even right now, he's in the news because he's gotten speeding tickets. He was in the news, like they had a tracker of how many pass attempts he had and how many touchdowns and interceptions and OTAs. He's just going to be under a microscope forever. So whatever team, is going to have to take that on. And that sucks because he could potentially provide for a quarterback room. He could, sort of like Hendon Hooker. You sit him in the back, you help him, see what he's got, see if he can grow, he can learn the offense. And then, you figure out where you are in a year or two, or, you see what you have. We hear very little from Hendon Hooker. We, obviously we're both in close with the team and we pay attention to Hendon Hooker and we see what he's doing, but Hendon is very quiet. You don't hear about that. Now imagine if all you heard was Hendon Hooker and they, that's all people talked about. They talked about him more than the starter. They talked about when he's going to start. They, counted how many balls he throws every single practice and how many touchdowns and picks. That's just not typical for a backup quarterback. You want as few distractions as possible.
I know.
And that's just not, and it's not all his fault, but he definitely, before the draft anyway, seemed to be embracing the publicity and everything that came along with it. So maybe this is, I don't know, it seems like the wrong word to use, but maybe this has humbled him kind of.
I don't know, man. Getting those speeding tickets is just like this icing on the cake. Like, obviously he's not taking anything too serious. I don't know. When you go back,
well, you said it yourself. What are you doing in Cleveland? What?
Well, I mean,
he's racing.
He is. He's. I mean, I don't know. His dad, basically, and during the college football season was like, we're going to kind of dictate where he goes, and like I think that started off with this conversation where like these NFL teams didn't want to have entertained having Dion being involved in the commentary that he's going to provide, because that's something that you haven't touched on is like, yes, Shador brings stuff on himself, but his dad also brings on a lot of stuff and a lot of attention, and like you don't need all that extra attention. The kid's
it
got
might be good for him to get away from all that, and
yeah. But the problem is that he's not. I mean, he's not going to get away from that. There's going to be this focus on him, and he's going to have to put his head down and just stay out of the media spotlight, and that means, not breaking any laws and not doing all those type of things that just bring unwanted attention.
Yeah, seeing how he handles training camp is going to be huge for him.
Yep.
Real quick, just because we talked about it. So Flacco, 1 year, he's got $4.2 million on the contract, $3 million guaranteed.
Yep.
And his contract's up to $13 million.
Mm-hmm.
And if you cut Pickett, he's at 2.5 guaranteed.
Okay.
So if you're talking about who to cut, technically you have more money invested in Flacco at this point in time.
Yeah, but I think the upside with Pickett would be a little bit more than Flacco. Just depends on what you want to do, I guess.
Do they have a true training camp battle for that?
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, if it's close, like let's just say Flacco and Pickett are basically close. The money's negligible. You said $3 million to $2.5 million.
Right.
I think the upside with Pickett would be higher, and then obviously you're looking to turn it over to Gabriel or Sanders at some point if you're going to keep those guys. It's crazy the cheapness of that. Like your starters. If Flacco is your starter and Pickett was your backup, that's a ridiculous low amount of money spent on quarterbacks. But then you have Deshaun Watson, not playing, making like whatever 60 million or something like that. And even if he was playing, Flacco has already outstarted him sometimes when he was with the team previously. So crazy. All right, man. The last thing I want to hit on is Jair Alexander, released by the Packers, signed with the Ravens. I did not want to see him signed by the Ravens. That was the last team I wanted him to go to.
This is interesting because he's still young, right? And we kind of touched on this before, but it just wasn't, his availability was always in question. And it seemed like the team didn't really even know if he was going to be ready to play in these games or not. It was never, a problem when he was active, and when he was playing, he, plays at a very high level. He played with Lamar Jackson in Louisville. So, I mean, I guess this made sense, obviously, because Baltimore's got a good team too. I'm okay with him getting out of the division and out of the NFC altogether.
I'm okay with that too. We're going to end up playing Baltimore. I just didn't, as a team that would, as the Lions with Super Bowl aspirations, I just don't want to see another team with Super Bowl aspirations get better.
Getting better, right?
Because their pass defense was a limiting factor last year for them. And if Jair's healthy, I mean, he's all pro caliber out there. And I just don't need Baltimore getting that much better. But I am glad that he's out of the division. You're exactly right there.
Right. We'll see. I mean, as he lost a step, he was all pro in 2020 and 2022. So it's been a couple years. Time will tell.
He hasn't been healthy, and that's why he's not on the Packers anymore. So we'll see what comes out from it. But man, I did not want him to go to that team. Unfortunately, he did. So
obviously, if you're Jair Alexander and you get cut loose, because there were rumors that the Packers were trying to figure out a trade, didn't work out. They cut him loose. If you're Jair, you're looking who's got playing time and who's got the best chance at a Super Bowl, because that's where I'm going. And if one of your college buddies and one of your best friends is a quarterback for a contending team, then that's a pretty easy choice for you.
I agree. I'm right there. Like when I saw that, I was like a match made in heaven for them,
Right.
But it is what it is. So, all right, man. Our trip around the league, we did the over-under stuff, man. I feel pretty good. It was a good conversation. It's always a little bit of a worry, like, what are we going to talk about? Because, this is the true dead time in the NFL area, but did pretty good, I think.
Right. 3 weeks until training camp.
I know. I cannot wait. Training camp dates did come out. Hoping to make December, but all the scheduled, man, it made it tough for me. So, I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, we find out what day we can go to. I reached out to someone. They have not got dates for our VIP thing yet. So,
okay,
we can hook that up again.
Knock on wood that happens again, right?
That was so awesome. So, all right, man. Well, Tigers end up winning 11-4, so that's pretty awesome. Feeling good about that.
A little shaky at the beginning for Scooble.
It was.
Rain delay. Maybe you can chalk that up. I don't know.
Yeah, second game in a row he's at a rain delay. This time at least it wasn't raining when he started, but he still gave up 2 homers, which really unlike Scooble, had been I think the end of May is the last time he gave up. So it's been almost a whole month before he gave up a home run last. So
right,
but we still won 11-4. So got nothing to complain about there. So.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, man.
Just win.
Yeah, exactly. All right, for Jacob, I'm Jason. Let's go Lions.